Level 1. Shestiorka. It's 3:14 a.m., and you are standing in a Chevron parking lot holding a gym bag that isn't yours. You don't know what's in it. That's the point. The man who handed it to you spoke 12 words total. He didn't ask your name. He didn't give you his. He told you across street in South Sacramento, told you to leave the bag behind the dumpster, and told you to walk away without looking back. Then he handed you $180 in cash, rubber banded, already counted, and got back into a black Tahoe with tinted plates and disappeared south on the freeway. You're not crew. You're not sponsored. You're not anything yet. You are a Shestiorka, a 6, the lowest card in the deck, the one you play when you need to see if someone's being watched, the one you throw away. The reason they use you is simple. You are invisible. You have no priors serious enough to flag. You have no known affiliation. You're not Russian, not Georgian, not anything that connects back to them. You're just some broke kid who got introduced to a guy through a cousin at a cookout in Modesto, and that guy vouched for you being quiet and not stupid, and that was enough. The bag weighs about 6 pounds. Don't think about it. You drive a 09 Civic with a cracked taillight. You know that taillight is cracked. Every cop on the I-5 knows that taillight is cracked. Right now, you are calculating whether you make it to South Sacramento without getting lit up. The answer is you don't think about that. You drive the speed limit. You use your turn signals. You are the most law-abiding driver on this freeway tonight because $180 and a cracked taillight is not worth a stretch in Folsom. You make the drop. You walk away. Nobody is behind the dumpster. Nobody speaks to you. The bag disappears and you drive home. By sunrise, $180 buys you nothing. It covers your phone bill, half your gas, a double-double from the In-N-Out on Hammer Lane at midnight. You eat it alone in your whip in the parking lot thinking you just did something. Thinking you are in. You're not in. You're a tool that got used tonight. And the only reason you sleep fine is because you don't know that yet. That drop felt clean, uneventful, like you passed the test. Except what you don't know is that was the audition for a role where the cast members don't retire. Welcome to the part where they start watching how you move. Level 2, boy, it's 3 months of drops, 6 bags, for different cross streets across the Central Valley. Nobody's name, nobody's face, more than once. Then one day the call is different. The pickup isn't a gym bag at a Chevron. It's a sit-down at a banya, a Russian bathhouse in a strip mall in the Richmond district of San Francisco, sandwiched between a nail salon and a Slavic grocery at 11 a.m. on a Tuesday. You are what they told you to wear. You say what they told you to say. You eat the food they put in front of you without asking what it is. There are 3 men at the table. You know one of them by sight from a Stockton lot. The other 2 are older, thicker, quieter. One has a blue star tattooed below his collarbone, visible above his towel. That star is a Vor mark. You know what that means now because you spent 3 months learning everything you could about who these people are. They don't give you a title. Nobody in this life gives you a title to your face. But the conversation changes. It's no longer 12 words. It's a 2-hour discussion in a mix of English and Russian about loyalty, about how the Bay works, about what putting in work means to people who have been putting in work since before you were born. You are now a boyets, a soldier. You have a brigadier, a direct supervisor you will address respectfully and never contradict publicly. You have a phone number you memorize and never store. You have a task set that is no longer just drops. Now you collect. A restaurant owner in the Sunset District pays $4,200 every first Monday of the month. A used car lot on International Boulevard in Oakland pays $3,000 on the 15th. A poker room operating out of a converted warehouse near the port of Oakland pays weekly. Cash in an envelope, no conversation, left with the bartender. Your job is to pick up the envelope. Count in the whip before you leave the block. Text one number confirmation code if it's correct, a different code if it's short. 3 times in 6 months, it's short. Twice, by the next Monday, the shortage is resolved without you doing anything. Whoever handles the resolution handles it before you even ask questions. The 3rd time, your brigadier tells you to ride with him to a dry cleaning business in the Tenderloin. You wait in the car. He's inside for 9 minutes. When he comes out, his knuckles are split, and he's completely calm. He hands you a sealed envelope, tells you to count it. It's correct plus an extra $800. He calls that extra $800 interest. You learn something that day that nobody teaches you in words. The collection isn't really about money. The money is just the proof that the arrangement is still respected. When the proof stops, what replaces it is a demonstration. And your job, as a boy, is to be present for those demonstrations without flinching, without talking, and without asking what happens in buildings you wait outside of. You're making $3,500 a week now. Cash, no taxes. You moved out of your cousin's place into a one-bedroom in Daly City. You drive a used BMW 3 Series that your brigadier told you to keep clean, but not flashy. The rule is, look like a young professional, not like someone active. This is the first rule they brand into you. They call it the red debt. You don't fully understand it yet, but here's how it works. Every dollar they spend on you, the BMW, the apartment tip, the lawyer's number they give you just in case, the bond if you ever get pinched, is not a gift. It is an investment, and the Bratva does not make investments without a return. There is no leaving this arrangement debt-free. The red debt compounds. Every resource they extend to you, every connection they open, every problem they make disappear, it accumulates. And one day, when the balance is called in, the currency isn't money. It's obedience, without limit, without timeline. You don't know this yet. You're 24 years old, and you have $3,500 a week and a BMW, and you feel like the smartest person you know. Being a soldier feels like power. It feels like momentum, except you're not the one driving. You're just a passenger who thinks he has a hand on the wheel. The next rank is where the wheel gets handed to you. The problem is it's attached to a cliff. Level 3, Brigadier. You have your own crew now. For people, you know 2 of them well. The other 2 are vouched for by people above you, and that vouching is the only background check that exists. You're Brigadier before you got moved up to a different city, Vegas. You think, but you don't ask, and the territory he managed passed to you like a handoff in a relay race. No ceremony, one conversation, new number to contact, new responsibilities outlined in 30 minutes in a booth at a 24-hour diner off the 101 in South San Francisco at 6 a.m. The collection circuit is now yours. 6 accounts in the Bay, 2 in Stockton, 1 in Fresno, a massage business that is not a massage business. That pays $7,500 on the last Friday of every month. But here's what they don't tell you when they give you the territory. The territory comes with its problems too. You inherit everything. The accounts that are late. The one business owner who's been skimming and thinks nobody has noticed yet. The dispute with a Mexican outfit over a block in East Oakland that your predecessor left unresolved because he moved on before it got messy. That dispute is now your problem. You sit across from a man named Ernesto in a taqueria on Foothill Boulevard at 2 p.m. on a Wednesday. He has 3 people outside. You have 2. You are not here to fight. You are here to establish the boundary, the block, the product corridor, the cut, clearly, finally, and without ambiguity. The conversation takes 45 minutes. It ends with a handshake and a number, 15%. They keep 15% of movement through a specific 2-block stretch for non-interference. You bring this back to your authority, the man above you, and he approves it in 2 words, fine. Document. Document means you memorize the terms, confirm them verbally to 2 witnesses from your side, and never write them down. You are now managing $47,000 a month in collections. You keep $6,200 of that as your operational cut, your crew's pay, your own draw, your expenses. Everything else moves up the chain. Cash clean through the car lot accounts, and the restaurant enters the legitimate flow as revenue. The white-collar part of this job is more exhausting than the street part. You spend hours in meetings with a Ukrainian accountant in a Civic Center high-rise who explains cash flow statements to you with the patience of a man who has done this for 20 years and knows that if he explains it wrong. His next meeting is with someone who doesn't ask questions. You learn what a Shell LLC looks like on paper. You learn how a consulting fee moves money without triggering a suspicious activity report. You learn that the IRS is a more reliable enemy than any rival crew because you can bribe a person, but you cannot bribe a pattern. Your autorité has 2 rules he repeats every time he sees you. Rule 1, the street is the product, the paperwork is the protection. Rule 2, a brigadier who gets arrested is a brigadier who got lazy. You have not been lazy. You have been meticulous. 3:14 a.m. doesn't mean anything to you as a wake-up call anymore. It's just an hour you're sometimes still awake, running numbers in your head, calculating who owes what, when the next pickup is, whether the Fresno account is going to be short again this month, and what that means. You are 27. You have $18,000 in a safe in your closet and $55,000 in a bank account in the name of an LLC that sells business consulting services. You drive a leased Audi Q5. You tell anyone who asks that you work in logistics. You're not wrong. You manage the chaos. You made the math work. You handled Ernesto without a body. That's why they notice you. And in this world, being noticed by the right people is the most dangerous promotion you'll ever get. Level 4, Avtoritet. The title is never spoken out loud. Not to you. Not in your presence. But you feel the weight of it the first time a brigadier calls you with a problem and waits silently, without breathing, for your answer. Not a suggestion. Your answer. The final word. And you give it. Calmly. Clearly. And he says, understood, and hangs up and goes and does it. That is what Avtoritet means in practice. Authority. Not a rank that gets announced. A gravity that other people orbit. You oversee 3 brigadiers now. Bay Area North, Bay Area South, and the Central Valley Corridor. Stockton through Fresno, including a trucking operation out of a depot off the 99 near Merced that moves product north from the port under a legitimate agricultural freight manifest. Avocados from Michoacan. Except the shipment weight never quite matches the invoice. The port of Long Beach is where most of the real volume enters. You've been down to LA twice for logistics meetings at a shipping brokerage office in San Pedro. 3rd floor, clean glass office, a man named Dimitri who wears a $6,000 watch and speaks with a slight Odessa accent and shakes your hand like you're a business partner, which technically you are. The Bay Pipeline runs north. The LA Pipeline runs east. You manage the seam between them. The money at this level is not a weekly amount anymore. It's a quarterly conversation. You're Sovietnik, the advisor above you, the man who translates the pecan's decisions into operational direction. Sits with you 4 times a year at a Russian restaurant in the Richmond district where the back room is swept for devices before every meeting. He tells you your number. You receive it and you say nothing because the number is not a negotiation. $280,000 last quarter. You're cut after upward distribution. You live in a house in Tiburon, $3.1 million, owned through a Delaware LLC, mortgaged through a private lender that looks out over the bay. Your neighbors are a retired biotech executive and a couple who own a vineyard in Napa. You attend the neighborhood association meetings. You wave at the mailman. You install the security system that your Sovietnik's tech guy hardwired personally. But here is what Avtoritet actually means at 2 a.m. on a Thursday when one of your brigadiers calls you because one of his soldiers got pinched at a DUI checkpoint in Tracy with $14,000 in cash and a burner that has 3 texts on it that are explainable if you have the right lawyer and catastrophic if you don't. You have the lawyer's number memorized. You call it. The lawyer, a criminal defense attorney in Sacramento with a Stanford law degree who billed $2.2 million last year. Most of it through referrals from people like you. Answers on the second ring because you are not his only client at 2 a.m. and he is very well compensated for this. By 6 a.m. the soldier is out. The phone is logged as a personal device with no relevant communications. The cash is explained as proceeds from a private poker game. Legal in California, above a certain threshold with the right filing. The problem disappears. This is your real job. Not collecting, not directing operations. Making problems disappear before they become problems that cannot be disappeared. You're the firewall. The structural integrity of the organization at the operational level. The thing that keeps the pecan's name out of incident reports and federal databases. And the thing about being a firewall is this. When the system gets hit hard enough, the firewall takes the damage. You know this. You think about it on the mornings you run on the trail above Tiburon, looking out at the bay. You think about all the decisions you've made that exist nowhere on paper, in nobody's files, in no recorded conversation. Clean. But you also know about the cold chair. This is the second rule you've learned that has no written form, but everyone at your level understands completely. When a PACON calls a meeting, not through the Sovietnik, not through a proxy, when the PACON himself reaches out and specifies that he wants to see you face-to-face at a specific location, and when you arrive, and there's a chair placed specifically for you, and he gestures at it specifically, you sit in that chair, and you already know whether you are walking out. Nobody has pointed at that chair for you yet. You think you've reached the ceiling. 3 brigadiers. A Tiburon house. A lawyer on speed dial. This feels like the top. Except the top is a different atmosphere entirely. And the air up there is thinner than you think. Level 5. Smatriashi. You don't move product anymore. You watch people who move product. The title translates to the one who watches, and that is exactly what it is. territorial oversight at regional level. You are the organization's eyes on Northern California, not the hands, the eyes. You assess, you report, you recommend, and when necessary, you authorize. You have never once in your life been more aware of how much you don't say in any given conversation. A smatriashi's power is not demonstrated. It is understood. When you walk into a room, the room changes temperature. Not because you threaten anyone, because everyone in that room knows that your report, which goes directly to the Sovietnik, who delivers it to the PACON, determines whether their brigadier gets a conversation or gets disappeared. This is accountability at scale. You are the mechanism by which an organization operating across 400 miles of California geography stays coherent and disciplined. Your day looks like this. You are in a leased Escalade on the 405 northbound out of LAX at 7 a.m. because the Southern California liaison, a vor with roots in Brighton Beach who has managed the LA corridor for 11 years, called emergency breakfast meeting at a hotel in Century City that nobody tells you the subject of until you're in the private dining room with the door closed. The subject is a federal agent, not an investigation, an agent. Specifically, an FBI special agent assigned to the organized crime unit in the San Francisco field office who has been conducting what appears to be an unauthorized off-book inquiry into 3 shell companies that connect at the 2nd degree to port logistics accounts that connect at the 3rd degree to a brigadier in Oakland. Your liaison source inside the field office is a paralegal who has been on the payroll for 4 years. The paralegal doesn't know who she's working for. She believes she's providing case information to a private investigative firm as a side income. She flagged the inquiry 3 weeks ago, and your liaison sat on it to confirm the pattern before bringing it upward. You eat your breakfast, eggs Benedict, good hotel, linen napkins, and you listen to everything. Then you ask for questions. Precise. Clinical. What is the scope of the inquiry? Who else in the Bureau knows it exists? What is the paralegal's access level? What is the agent's family situation? That last question is not a threat. It's an assessment. An agent with a sick child and medical debt is a different risk profile than an agent 3 years from a pension and a cabin in Montana. Everything in this world is risk assessment. You give your recommendation in 2 sentences. Your liaison nods. The meeting ends at 9:15 a.m. You are back on the 405 southbound toward Long Beach by 9:30 because you have a separate meeting at a maritime law firm in the Port District at noon. You make $420,000 a year. Clean, on paper, through a consulting partnership that does legitimate compliance advisory work for mid-size import-export businesses. Your tax returns are immaculate. Your CPA won a regional award last year. You have not personally committed a crime that would be recognizable as a crime in 3 years. Everything you do is recommendation, oversight, assessment, authorization. The law calls this conspiracy. You call it management. The only thing that keeps you stable at this level is compartmentalization. You know what is necessary to know. You don't know what isn't. When one of your brigadier soldiers ends up in the hospital after a debt collection goes wrong in Modesto, you don't ask what happened. You ask whether it creates exposure. When the answer is no, the conversation ends. You stop having nightmares about 2 years ago. Not because you made peace with anything, because you stopped processing it emotionally the same way you stop feeling the cold when you leave the house at 5 a.m. It's just weather now. This is the part they don't tell you when you're standing in a Chevron parking lot at 3 a.m. holding someone else's gym bag. The work doesn't change you all at once. It changes you one decision at a time, over years, until one morning you are sitting in a Century City hotel, eating eggs Benedict, and asking about a federal agent's family situation without your pulse moving a single beat. And that is the most frightening thing you will ever discover about yourself. You're watching everything now, but watching everything means being everywhere and belonging nowhere. The rank above you doesn't get more powerful. It gets more alone. And being alone at this altitude is a different kind of problem entirely. Level 6, Sovietnik. You are the translation layer. Between the pecan's will and the operational world, there's a gap filled with chaos, with the unpredictability of human beings under pressure, with the friction of moving money and product and power across a state with the most sophisticated law enforcement infrastructure in the country. You are the mechanism that bridges that gap. The PACON does not speak to smatriashis directly. He does not speak to brigadiers at all. He speaks to you, and you carry his words outward and the world's reports inward, and the translation work, the filtering, the framing, The protection of the boss from details that don't require his attention is your entire function. You have one office, a legitimate one, a law firm in a high-rise in DTLA on the 31st floor with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the 110 interchange and, on clear days, the port. The firm has 4 actual attorneys on staff who handle real commercial litigation for mid-sized clients. They know you're not a practicing attorney. They do not know what you are. They know you occupy an office and that the firm's operating expenses are always, without exception, fully covered. The PACON has one standing rule for you. Nothing reaches him that he cannot act on. Problems reach him with solutions attached. If a situation has no solution, it reaches him with a timeline for when a solution will exist. He is never presented with uncertainty raw. Raw uncertainty is your problem to process. This means your schedule is built around the needs of the organization at a strategic level, not individual operations. Policy, territory disputes that could escalate into something that draws federal attention. Succession questions, because 3 of the Avtoritets in the California network are in their late 50s, and the question of what the next generation of organizational structure looks like is not a small one. Political relationships. A city council member in Oakland who has been useful for 3 years and has recently developed an ambition for state legislature that makes his profile both more valuable and more dangerous. You handle all of this with the effect of a senior partner at a management consulting firm. Measured, analytical, unhurried. At home, a penthouse in a DTLA high-rise, fully owned through a 3-layer trust structure. A building where your neighbors include a TV producer and a cardiologist. You're a very pleasant neighbor who occasionally hosts dinner parties attended by architects, entertainment lawyers, and one deputy commissioner from the LAPD whose presence at your table everyone chalks up to his wife's book club. You are the cleanest person in the organization, untouchable by design. The red debt at your level is so old and so deep that you stopped thinking about it as a debt years ago. You think of it the way you think of gravity. It simply is. It is the condition of your existence in this world. The debt isn't called in because calling it in would be less efficient than leaving it active. You are more valuable as a functioning Sovietnik than you would be as any other use of what you owe. This is the most sophisticated trap ever designed. The cage that works because you can see it clearly and you choose to stay anyway because outside the cage is worse. You're 41 years old. You have not loved a person freely, without calculating their risk profile, without wondering what they know, without modeling what they would say under pressure in a very long time. You drink 1 glass of Georgian wine every night before bed. You chose Georgian specifically. It connects to something from a long time ago that you cannot name and don't try to. You sleep fine. That's the part you can't explain to anyone. The advisor is the brain of the operation, but a brain without a body is just a thought. The rank above you is where thought becomes absolute power. And absolute power in this world doesn't look like what you imagine. It looks like a man sitting alone in a room who hasn't trusted anyone in 15 years. Level 7, Ops Shack Keeper. Every dollar that flows through the entire California network passes through you. Not physically, conceptually. You are the keeper of the Ops Shack, the communal fund, the war chest, the financial spine of the entire operation. You know the total accumulated capital of the organization's California presence. You know the allocation ratios. You know the reserve thresholds that trigger specific responses. What level of liquid reserve justifies expansion? What level triggers defensive posture? What level below a certain line means someone somewhere is stealing? Nobody steals from the Ops Shack. This is not a statement of morality. It is a statement of probability. In the entire history of this organization in California, 2 people have stolen from the Ops Shack. You know what happened to both of them without knowing the specific details. The specific details are not information that needed to reach you. The outcome reached you. That was sufficient. You're not a financial criminal in the crude sense. You're a financial architect. The complexity of the structures you maintain, the layered LLCs, the offshore accounts in Cyprus and Montenegro, the real estate portfolios in Nevada and Florida that cycle through legitimate sales cycles, the crypto positions managed through a brokerage account in the name of a trust whose beneficiary is a legal entity that does not exist in a conventional sense, would require a forensic accounting team with federal subpoena power and 18 months of dedicated investigation to begin to understand. There have been two such investigations in the past 8 years. Both stalled at the third layer of the structure and were closed for insufficient evidence. Your work is not exciting. It is meticulous, continuous, and existentially critical. You work with a team of 3 people, a CPA, a private banking specialist, and a crypto transactions analyst, none of whom know they work for the same principal. They each know you as a different client. The compartmentalization is total. You meet with the PACON 4 times a year. Just you and him. No Sovietnik in the room. These are the only meetings where the PACON speaks without an intermediary, because the financial picture of the organization is information that cannot be filtered or softened. He needs the real number. He needs to hear it from the person who holds it. These meetings happen in the same location every time, a private dining room at a members-only club in Beverly Hills. Lunch, a bottle of mineral water, not sparkling. The PACON orders the same thing every time. You have learned to order quickly, because the moment the food arrives, the financial conversation begins, and the PACON does not allow distractions. He listens. He asks 3 or 4 precise questions. He gives 2 or 3 directions. The meeting ends. You leave first. He stays for another 30 minutes, alone, because the PACON does not leave a room in a way that suggests urgency. What you understand about the PACON, from 4 years of quarterly meetings, from the pattern of his questions, from what he chooses not to ask, is that he is the most patient man you have ever encountered. He is not reactive. He is not emotional. He thinks in 5-year windows and adjusts for variables with the same effect as someone adjusting the climate control in a car. He is also completely alone. There is no family in the conventional sense. There are associates, and there are resources, and there are people who are loyal out of debt, and people who are loyal out of fear, and there is the occasional person who is loyal out of genuine respect. But there is nothing that a normal person would recognize as warmth in his life. You notice this, and you file it away. You're 44 years old. You have a wife who believes you work in private equity, and who has learned, over 11 years of marriage, not to ask questions that don't have answers she wants. You have 2 kids in private school in Pasadena. You coach your son's soccer team on Saturday mornings. You go to the Saturday morning games thinking about wire transfer routing codes. You go to the Tuesday night team dinners thinking about reserve thresholds. You smile at the right moments. You laugh at the jokes. You hug your kids, and you're not fully present for any of it. You haven't been for years. The red debt is not money. It never was. It is time. It is presence. It is every moment of your actual life that you paid into the machine. You've seen the whole map. You hold the numbers. You know what the organization is worth, what it costs, what it will do to protect itself. But the one thing the numbers never tell you, the one variable that never fits the model, is what the man at the top is actually thinking. Level 8, Pecan. You came to California in 1999. You were 28. You had $600, a contact name written on a piece of paper in your jacket pocket, and a specific kind of clarity that comes from having already survived things that were supposed to kill you. The contact name was a man in the Richmond district of San Francisco who ran a banya and knew people. You sat in that banya for 6 hours on your first day in America, and you listened. You didn't talk much. You listened to the way people spoke here. You listened to what they feared and what they wanted and what they thought they could get away with. And you understood, within those 6 hours, that California was not a place. It was an appetite. An enormous, unceasing appetite dressed in sunshine. You understood appetites. You had grown up feeding them. 25 years later, you were sitting in a house in Bel Air. Not the largest house on the block, never the largest, because visible wealth is a liability at 9 p.m. on a Tuesday. The house is on 2 acres. The security system was designed by a firm that also works for 3 foreign embassies. The property is owned by a Cayman trust whose paper trail requires 3 separate jurisdictions to begin to unravel. There are no bodyguards inside the house. The guards are at the perimeter. Inside, you are alone. This is a choice. You have been making this choice for many years. The reason is simple. The people most likely to harm you are people who are close to you. You have eliminated the close. Your Sovietnik called you this afternoon with 3 items. An FBI inquiry that is being managed. A succession question regarding a brigadier in Fresno who has been showing independent initiative, meaning he has been solving his own problems without escalating, which is admirable until it becomes autonomy, and autonomy in a brigadier becomes a different kind of problem. And a real estate opportunity in the inland empire that your obshack keeper believes warrants expansion. You gave direction on all three in 11 minutes. The FBI inquiry. Continue managing. No escalation of countermeasures yet. Monitor the timeline. The brigadier. Give him one acknowledgement of his initiative and watch whether it increases or whether he becomes more careful. The response to praise tells you more than the original behavior. The real estate. Approved, 60-day option, no full commitment until Q1 numbers are confirmed. 11 minutes. 25 years of accumulated institutional knowledge distilled into 11 minutes of direction. This is what the PAC-HON is, a decision architecture. A machine that processes the organization's reality and outputs direction. Everything else, the money, the territory, the fear, the infrastructure, is the expression of that architecture, not the thing itself. You did not get here through violence. Violence was a tool, early on, used precisely and infrequently, which is why it worked. Men who use violence constantly become predictable, and they become targets. You used it 3 times in the first 4 years in California. 3 specific moments where the ambiguity of your position needed to be resolved absolutely. After that, your reputation did the work. You have not needed to resolve ambiguity through force since 2007. What you have instead of force is certainty. You are certain of everything, not because you are never wrong, but because certainty is a posture that other people cannot penetrate. Doubt is a vulnerability. In 25 years in this world, you have never expressed doubt in a professional context. If you doubted privately, you resolved the doubt privately and presented the outcome publicly. You walk to the window. You can see the lights of the 405 from here, a river of headlights running south toward LAX. From this height, at this distance, it is beautiful. From inside one of those cars on a Tuesday night, trying to make it to a drop somewhere in Stockton, it is a cracked taillight and a racing pulse. You remember that. You remember what it was to hold a bag you didn't know the contents of and walk away from a dumpster at 3 a.m. and feel like that was the beginning of something. It was the beginning of something, just not the something you imagined. The reward was real. The money is real. The house is real. The untouchability. The remarkable, improbable fact that after 25 years, the federal government has never built a case to hold your name on its own without 3 layers of insulation between you and the charge is real. But here is the truth that nobody at level 1 calculates, because at level 1 you cannot yet imagine surviving long enough for it to matter. You trust nobody, not completely, not the Sovietnik who is loyal and competent and bound by a red debt so deep he will never be free of it, but who is still a human being, and human beings, under sufficient pressure, make decisions that serve their own survival. Not the obshchat keeper, who is meticulous and brilliant, and has protected the financial architecture for 4 years without a breach, but who has children in private school in Pasadena, and that is a vulnerability you track without malice, because it is simply accurate intelligence. Not any brigadier, not any smatriashi, not any avtoritet. You have not had a conversation in 25 years that was not, at some level, a strategic interaction. You pour 2 fingers of vodka, not Georgian wine. That is the Sovietnik's choice, and you have noted it and drawn conclusions from it that you keep to yourself. Vodka, Russian standard. You drink it neat. You stand at the window and watch the 405. The machine runs beneath you. It is running right now, tonight, in the Richmond district and in the Tenderloin and on the I-5 through Stockton and at the Port of Long Beach. It is running in the in-and-out parking lots at midnight and in the high-rises in DTLA and in the shipping containers moving north from San Pedro. It is running through the Banya in the Richmond and the private dining room in Beverly Hills and the law firm on the 31st floor. It will run tomorrow. It ran yesterday. It ran before you arrived in California, and it will run after you are gone. You are not the machine. You are the current iteration of the machine's highest function. When you are gone, through retirement, through death, through forces you cannot predict, the machine will select a new iteration. It is already selecting. Somewhere in the Central Valley, in some brigadier's crew, in some of Toritet's network, there's a man in his late 20s who is meticulous and cold and ambitious and completely unaware of what he is walking into. The machine knows his name. You don't need to yet. You finish the vodka. You turn away from the window. The 405 runs all night. It is 3:14 a.m. A kid is standing in a Chevron parking lot off the I-5 in Stockton, holding a gym bag that isn't his. He doesn't know what's in it. That's the point. He was introduced through a cousin at a cookout in Modesto. Someone vouched that he was quiet and not stupid. He's been handed $180 in cash, rubber banded, already counted, and told to cross street, and told to walk away without looking back. He is calculating his odds of making it to the drop without getting pulled over. He thinks this is the beginning. He is right. The machine doesn't break. It feeds, and tonight, it just found its next meal.